up, everybody? It's me, Zombie, and today we are going to be building the flamethrower from the first Alien movie. Alien is one of my most favorite movies of all time, and I feel really guilty for not building something from it sooner, so we're gonna build the flamethrower. The flamethrower is a fun little weapon that the crew of the Nostromo whipped up to try to keep the xenomorph at bay. Unfortunately, a couple of the crew fell to their demise while using the flamethrower, but that doesn't stop it from looking awesome. So if you want to find out how to make your very own flamethrower from Alien, keep on watching. Our first step is going to be looking at the reference picture. One thing that I'm really noticing about all of these references is that no one is exactly the same. It looks like all of them are just a little bit different. I'm just really picking my favorite reference and going with how that body is shaped and how that one looks. I'm planning on doing Solaire, give me back my cord to my laptop. So what I'm planning on doing, stop it, give it back. Anyway, first I'm gonna make a pattern for the body of my flamethrower. What I did is I got some brown paper and I measured it about 3 inches by approximately 18 inches. This is just so when I start adding on my other accessories, it will add up to about 31.5 inches. So using this long rectangle, it's kind of making my life a little bit easier here because I'm sketching out places that I want to cut out and get rid of. And that will help me end up with the shape that I want. Now this is the very basic shape of the body of the flamethrower. I'm cutting out a bunch of foam pieces about 18 inches long, 3.5 inches wide. I am gonna stack a bunch of these together until I get a width of about 3 inches. Now we're gonna start tracing this onto some EVA foam.
Hello! Now that I have my big stack of EVA all cut out, I am just brushing it all on right here. I just have a little chip brush, layer this as evenly as I can all the way to the corners, letting that dry, and then stacking each piece together. So a lot of these are going to have contact cement on both sides. So that means a lot of contact cement and a lot of painting.
All right, so here is our block of foam. It is all contact cemented together. And now I am ready to run it through my bandsaw. With my pattern, I've traced around the edges right here where I need to cut into the foam. So we'll be able to cut out those pieces really quickly. Alright, so now that we have this big block of foam, I really want to round out the edges and make it look just a little bit more neat and not quite like just a foam block. Rounding out the edges on something like this really helps it look more believable. Since I have this pattern cut out already, I'm going to use this as a guide to make my little box shape that goes on the front end here. But I'm gonna transfer this piece onto foam now. And this piece is quite a bit skinnier than my frame, so I'm only going to be stacking a few pieces of foam with the shapes together. And really, I don't even need to perfectly cut all of these out because I'm gonna be cutting them out on the bandsaw anyway. And perfect, there's our nice little stack of foam that we'll be using for that little box that goes on top of the flamethrower. The next step is contact cementing this all together, and then I'm going to run it through my bandsaw. Alright, and here is what the body looks like after all the edges are rounded out and after I've attached my little top box piece right here. I also attached this little fiddly bit right there just by cutting into some EVA foam to some notches, and then I super glued it to the base. I found these bottles of Chlorine Remover Plus at my local home improvement store. I'm gonna recycle these bottles to work as my little fuel tanks on my flamethrower. I washed them out really well, and now it is time to take all the labels off of them. Taking off the labels on these takes a little bit of elbow grease, but luckily they come off all in one piece and you don't have to just sit there picking off all the little bits of paper, because that is the worst. Now that I have my bottle labels removed, I drew a little line at approximately where I needed to cut these in half. And that's just so when these are both cut in half, I can attach them on top of each other like this. So I'm gonna use my handy dandy bandsaw and do that real quick. Now that I have this little piece trimmed, I am going to use some 120 grit sandpaper and just get rid of all of these rough edges that you see right here. And that is looking better already. To cover up this little hole that's exposed on the bottom, I just pressed a piece of 2mm foam in the bottom on the inside right there, and then just let it dry with some super glue. Now to glue these together, I'm gonna be using some hot glue, putting it on the inside of both my pieces, and then mushing it together very carefully. I'm hoping that this all works out because I haven't glued a tube together like this before. And as you can see, the edges are very thin. I'm just putting glue in here as quickly as I can. This will start drying relatively quickly, and I just want to make sure that I am working fast enough. Okay, moment of truth. Trying to match up the seams on the side right here. Luckily, I have a little bit of dry time on this, so I can kind of squish it around if I need to. Now I'm just gonna kind of hold this in place and wait till everything dries and see how it turns out. Now I'm moving on to the little grips on the flamethrower. It has two grips, they're identical, and they're really thin. It looks like they're approximately about 1/4 inch thick, and they are this shape. This part, of course, attaches to the body of the flamethrower, and this is kind of the little grip area. You see those grooves where your fingers are supposed to rest. And I am going to transfer this onto MDF. Here are what those two little pieces look like after they are all cut out. Now I'm gonna attach them to the body of my flamethrower. I went in with a utility knife and an X-Acto blade and scooped out some of that extra foam in there. Once enough material was out, I was able to stick in my two grips and then super glue them into place. And they're really sturdy now. They're not going anywhere. All of the PVC caps I'm gonna be using on this prop unfortunately have a logo printed in along with some other information around the edge. It is raised around here, so what I want to do is sand all of this down so it will be nice and flush. So now I have all of my little PVC caps all sanded. Now they're ready to have some holes drilled in. This is the front nozzle of the flamethrower right here, so I want to put some holes in it. According to my reference pictures, there are 5, so wherever I put a dot, I will be drilling a hole. This is where the barrel piece attaches to the body of the flamethrower. So I'm also gonna be drilling some holes right here where my aluminum rod is gonna be going in. So I just wanna make sure that these are just how they should be, and that these are going to fit in my little PVC part just right, real snugly. Once I cut out some sections of my aluminum rod, I made a little Dremel hole where I wanted these to stick in. And now I'm just using the sharp end of each of those and just kind of driving them in there, making sure they fit. Now I'm going to put some super glue in each hole, then making sure to try to get around the sides as well. All right, so there's number 1. Do the sharp end on here. Make sure I can get that in there. So now those are in there. That can fit on there too. I just glued in this cap to the front right here, and I put my 2 rods in as well. Now I am going to position these 2 little caps on the front of my rods right here. All right, so all of those holes are drilled in there. Everything is attached, and I started attaching little bits and bobs of foam. A little wire is supposed to be attached out of a little jack here. So I'm just starting to add a little bit of detail on the front. I'm gonna go ahead and add on my little pipe onto the back here. I'm gonna be using the same rod method as I did on the front. And I have a couple of foam rings in the middle of here just to keep everything sturdy. Okay, and same story right onto the back right here. I'm going to be drilling a little hole right here and then attaching it all together. That is everything that we have glued in so far. Now is the fun part. I get to start putting a bunch of pieces on here. I'm just gonna be cutting out little pieces of 2mm foam, 6mm foam, cutting out little holes and bits and bobs, and just super gluing them all over the piece. I'm also adding my tubes that I made earlier. I made sure to reinforce them all with dowels, and then I glued them inside of the frame of my flamethrower. I cut up some mesh from a spare strainer and applied it to the top. I wouldn't suggest destroying a strainer for your own project, but in a pinch, I had to use this. I made a little frame to go around the mesh to make it look more accurate. I felt really guilty, so I ordered a brand new strainer right after I destroyed this one. After all of the finishing details were added, I went over all the foam pieces with my heat gun. This helps seal off the foam's pores and prepares it for a prime and paint job. This step will improve your paint job of any foam project you're working on. And now it's time for priming. I used an automotive filler primer on the MDF and the other hard plastic pieces. And for the foam, I used a black Plasti-Dip. Alright, so here it is. It is constructed and mostly all one color. I am pretty happy with it. I can't wait to start painting this thing. The design, even though it might look a little bit more difficult when you really start breaking things down, it's pretty easy and you can definitely put it together without too much heartache. I have EVA foam dust on my face, PVC in my hair, I destroyed a strainer, but I have a constructed flamethrower, which I think is a success. I hope watching me make this encourages you to try to make something cool of your very own. If you do decide to make something after watching this video, or if you've been making something anyway, I would love to see it. If you want to see me paint this thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video. I also have made a bunch of other cosplay tutorial videos, so if you want to check them out, feel free to do so. That would just make me feel real happy. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. That's the sound a flamethrower makes.